Listen to me closely. And when a veteran is using dirty tactics to hang on to P12, it feels like they are squatting in a seat that belongs to the future. It's not that we hate Kevin. It's that we are tired of the stagnation. We are tired of the same old story. And finally, we arrive at the most painful one. This isn't the hate of a villain. This is the hate of heartbreak. It's the frustration of watching a slow-motion car crash that has been lasting for 2 years. We have to talk about the second Red Bull seat. We have to talk about Sergio Checo Perez. Or maybe, depending on when you're watching this, Daniel Ricciardo. But let's focus on the phenomenon of the number 2 driver. The animosity towards Perez is unique. It comes from a place of what if? We are living in the Max Verstappen era. Max is a machine. He is arguably one of the greatest of all time. But for a long time, the Red Bull car was a rocket ship. It was, by far, the most dominant machine on the grid. And when you have a car that dominant, the only thing that can save the show, the only thing that can give us a title fight, is the other guy in the same car. We needed Checo to be Rosberg to Max's Hamilton. We needed him to be Prost to Max's Senna. And for a brief shining moment in early 2023, after Baku, we thought, maybe, just maybe. But then it fell apart. And it didn't just fall apart, it evaporated. The gap between Max and Checo became embarrassing. We watched Max win races by 20 seconds, while Checo was struggling to get out of Q2. We watched the Red Bull, a car capable of winning every race, fighting with midfielders. And the fans turned on Checo because he robbed us of a championship battle. We looked at that car and thought, if Lando Norris was in that seat, if Lewis Hamilton was in that seat, if Charles Leclerc was in that seat, we would have a war. Instead, we had a slaughter. And then came the excuses. The interviews where he blamed the car development, the tires, the setup, the wind, the phases of the moon. Fans have a very good radar for BS. When the data shows you are 0.6 slower per lap than your teammate in the same machinery, there is no hiding. The frustration boiled over because Red Bull, a team known for being ruthless, the team that fired Gasly and Albon without hesitation, suddenly seemed afraid to pull the trigger on Checo. Was it sponsorship money? Was it selling merchandise in Mexico? The hate for Checo is actually anger at Red Bull's management. It feels like they prioritized commercial stability over sporting excellence. It's painful to watch because Checo is a legend. He's the king of the streets. He saved his career from the ashes of Racing Point. He is a nice guy, but F1 is not a charity. Watching him spiral, watching him crash in qualifying, watching him look lost, it's like watching a boxer who doesn't know when to retire. The fans scream at the TV, "Put someone else in!" Not because they want Checo to suffer, but because they want to see what that Red Bull can actually do in the hands of a mortal enemy of Max Verstappen. Every race Checo underperforms is a race where we are denied a spectacle. And in the entertainment business, boring the audience is the ultimate sin. So where does this leave us? We have the blocker, the teammate killer, the danger, and the underperformer. Stroll, Ocon, Magnussen, Perez. 4 archetypes of frustration. But here is the uncomfortable truth I want to leave you with. The reason we focus so much on these 4 is that we care too much. If we didn't care about Formula One, we wouldn't give a damn who drives the Haas or who is in the second Aston Martin. The toxicity, the comments, the debates. They are a symptom of how passionate this fan base has become. But we also have to realize that this sport is brutal. The clock is ticking for all of them. The new generation is not just knocking on the door. They are banging on it with a sledgehammer. Antonelli, Behrman, Lawson, Bortoleto. They are hungry, they are fast, and they are cheap. The business of F1 is shifting. The era of the pay driver who stays for a decade is ending. The era of the solid number 2 is ending because the field is too tight now. You can't afford a passenger in the second car, when McLaren and Ferrari are breathing down your neck. So while we might vent our frustrations, while we might type angry comments about Stroll's latest mistake or Ocon's latest defense, the reality is that the sport usually self-corrects. It might take longer than we want, it might be unfair along the way, but eventually, performance speaks. The stopwatch never lies, and for these 4 drivers, the stopwatch is shouting very loud warnings. Now, I want to turn this over to you. I want you to play the role of the team principal. I want you to imagine you are Toto Wolff, or Christian Horner, or Lawrence Stroll. You have 1 pen, 1 contract termination letter, and 1 empty box. You have to fire one of these 4 drivers today to save your team. Who goes first? Is it Stroll, Ocon, Magnussen, or Perez? Who deserves to stay and who has overstayed their welcome? Don't just give me a name. Tell me why. Give me your sporting director rationale in the comments below. Let's argue about it. Let's get it all out in the open. Because that's what we do. We are F1 fans. We love the drama almost as much as we love the racing. Drop your pick. I'll be reading the best arguments. See you in the paddock. Listen to me closely for a second. Close your eyes if you have to. I want you to visualize the starting grid of a Formula One race. The heat radiating off the asphalt, the smell of burnt rubber and high-octane fuel, the mechanic screaming over the radio to clear the track. It is the most exclusive club on planet Earth. Think about that. There are 8 billion people in this world. There are millions of racing drivers trying to make a living. But on that grid, on Sunday, there are only 20 seats. 20. That's it. To be one of the 20, you are supposed to be the absolute elite, the gladiators, the best of the best. So when we, as fans, look at those 20 cars, we project our dreams onto them. We look at that steering wheel and we think about the sacrifice, the money, the tears, and the talent it took to get there. And that is exactly why, when we see a driver who seems to take that miracle for granted, or who treats that seat like a toy, or who puts others in danger because they can't control their emotions, we don't just get annoyed, we get angry. It's a visceral, deep-seated frustration. It feels like an injustice. And right now the atmosphere in the paddock is shifting. The patience is gone. We are seeing a level of toxicity and rejection towards certain drivers that we haven't seen in years. And I'm not talking about just haters on Twitter. I'm talking about a legitimate sporting frustration coming from the grandstands, from the commentators, and even from inside the teams. Today, we need to have a very honest, very uncomfortable conversation about 4 specific names. 4 drivers who, for different reasons, whether it's money, attitude, danger, or just pure lack of performance, have found themselves on the wrong side of the F1 fanbase. We need to ask, why do we feel this way? Is it fair? Or are they actually ruining the sport we love? But before we dive into the deep end, I need to make one thing crystal clear. This isn't about attacking them as human beings. We aren't here to bully anyone. These guys are human. They have families. They have feelings. But they are also public figures in a billion-dollar sport where performance is the only currency that matters. So when we critique them today, we are critiquing the driver, the athlete, and the choices they make behind the wheel. We are critiquing the system that keeps them there, while incredible talents like Liam Lawson, Felipe Drugovich, or Theo Pourchaire are sitting on their couches watching Netflix. That is the tragedy. And that is where the anger comes from. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The name that, every single weekend, trends on social media for all the wrong reasons. You know who I'm talking about. We have to talk about the Aston Martin situation. We have to talk about Lance Stroll. And listen, I know the narrative. Oh, stop picking on him. He's been on the podium. I get it. Lance is not a bad driver in the sense that he can't drive a car. He won F3. He has moments of speed, especially in the wet. But the hate, or rather the exhaustion, that fans feel towards Lance Stroll is not about his lap times. It's about something much deeper. It's about apathy. There is a feeling, when you watch Lance in the media pen, or when you hear his radio messages, that he just doesn't want it enough. Compare him to someone like Fernando Alonso, his teammate. Alonso is over 40 years old, he's a multimillionaire, he has nothing left to prove. Yet Alonso drives like his life depends on every single corner. He fights, he screams, he negotiates strategy, he lives and breathes racing. Then you look at the other side of the garage. You see Lance crashing on a formation lap in Brazil. You see him shoving his personal trainer in Qatar after a bad qualifying. You hear the one-word answers in interviews where he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world than at a Formula One track. That attitude is insulting to the fans. It's insulting because we know that Aston Martin is building a super team. Lawrence Stroll, his father, is a genius businessman. He built a state-of-the-art factory. He hired the legendary Adrian Newey. He signed Honda for 2026. He has Alonso. The team is poised to become a world championship contender. But there is a glass ceiling, and his name is Lance. The frustration comes from the realization that as long as his father owns the team, that seat is locked. It doesn't matter if he finishes P10 or P20. It doesn't matter if he costs the team millions in prize money by not scoring points. He is untouchable. And in a sport that claims to be the pinnacle of motorsport, having a driver who is immune to meritocracy breaks the illusion. It reminds us that cash is king. And that hurts. It hurts because we know that if you put a hungry rookie in that car, someone who has been fighting for scraps their whole life, they would drive the wheels off that thing. They would die for that seat. Lance acts like he's doing us a favor by showing up. And that is why the fan base has turned. It's not hate. It's a desperate desire to see that precious Aston Martin seat go to someone who will treat it like gold, not like a birthright. But if Stroll's problem is apathy, the next driver on our list has the opposite problem. He has too much passion, but it's toxic. We need to talk about the teammate killer. We need to talk about Esteban Ocon. Now, Esteban's story is actually inspiring. He didn't come from money. His parents lived in a caravan. They sacrificed everything, sold their house, traveled around Europe just to keep his karting dream alive. He is the definition of a grinder. He fought for everything he has. And you would think that would make him the fan favorite, the people's champion. But it hasn't. In fact, he has become one of the most polarizing figures in the paddock. Why? Because Esteban Ocon has a red mist problem. There is a psychology in sports called siege mentality. The idea that it's me against the world. Ocon drives like he is at war, not just with the other teams, but specifically with the guy sitting in the same garage. Look at the history. It's a pattern that you simply cannot ignore. It started at Force India with Sergio Perez. They were crashing into each other constantly, ruining the team's races at Spa, at Baku. It was chaos. Then he goes to Alpine, alongside Fernando Alonso. And instead of learning from the master, he fought him tooth and nail, defending against Alonso harder than he defended against Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. Alonso, who has seen everything in F1, was furious. And then the partnership with Pierre Gasly. Everyone knew they had personal beef from childhood, but we hoped they would be professionals. And what happened? Monaco. That move in Monaco where Ocon lunged down the inside of his teammate at Portier, launching his car into the air, ending his own race and almost taking Gasly out. That was the breaking point for a lot of fans. The reason Ocon gets so much heat is that Formula One is a team sport disguised as an individual sport. There are thousands of people back at the factory, engineers, mechanics, receptionists, cleaners, whose bonuses depend on the Constructors' Championship. When you crash into your teammate because your ego is too big to lift off the throttle, you aren't just ruining your race. You are literally taking money out of the pockets of the mechanics who fix your car until 4 a.m. That selfishness is what rubs people the wrong way. It's not about being aggressive. Senna was aggressive. Schumacher was aggressive. Verstappen is aggressive. But there is a line between hard racing and disloyalty. And Ocon crosses that line way too often. It creates an energy in the team that is toxic. Fans see this. They see a driver who is undeniably fast, talented, and consistent, but who seems incapable of playing the long game. It's frustrating because we see the talent, but we also see the self-sabotage. And in a grid this tight, nobody wants to root for the guy who shoots his own team in the foot. Now, let's shift gears. We've talked about apathy. We've talked about aggression. But now we need to talk about the danger. The tactics that make other drivers scream on the radio and make fans cover their eyes. We need to talk about Kevin Magnussen, the Viking. Look, I like Kevin. Off the track, he's a chill guy, a family man, super straightforward. But on the track, in the last couple of years, he has morphed into something chaotic. The frustration with Magnussen stems from how he has been used by the Haas team and how he has embraced the role of the goalkeeper. We saw it in Jeddah. We saw it in Miami. He realizes he can't score points, so he decides to destroy his own race to hold everyone else up, creating a train of cars to help his teammate Nico Hülkenberg score a point. From a team strategy perspective, it's genius. It works. From a sporting perspective, it feels dirty. It feels cheap. Watching a driver intentionally cut chicanes, rack up 10-20 seconds of penalties, and drive erratically just to be a roadblock, it sucks the joy out of racing. It turns a Grand Prix into a traffic jam. Fans hate this because it violates the unwritten code of honor among drivers. You race hard, you defend your position, but you don't weaponize the rulebook. You don't drive off the track to keep a position, knowing you'll get a penalty, but not caring because your race is dead anyway. It makes a mockery of the stewards. It makes a mockery of the regulations. And Magnussen has become the poster child for this elbows-out style that borders on dangerous driving. The accumulated penalty points, the race ban. It all paints a picture of a driver who has stopped caring about the art of racing and is just there to survive. And there's another layer to the Magnussen frustration. He's been in F1 for a long time. He had his chance at McLaren, at Renault, at Haas. He left, he came back. And the question fans are asking is this it? Is this the peak? Are we watching Kevin Magnussen occupy a seat just to be a glorified blocker, while young talents like Oliver Bearman are knocking on the door? Bearman jumped in that Ferrari in Jeddah and showed more spark in one race than we've seen from Kevin in a whole season. That contrast kills Magnussen's reputation. Fans want to see the future. They want to see the next generation.